Welcome to Couchlock, the movie podcast. Today, we wanted to take a look at the oversaturation of Hollywood and why there is one genre standing above all, against time, against pressure, against anything you can throw at it. Rachel, why is horror the last genre standing?
Oh, I think this is actually a really good question and also a very fair observation. There's been so many big franchises, so many big movie remakes out there. If you go to the movie theater at any given time, though, you're always going to find a staple horror film being shown. And I think that there's a few reasons that contribute to why this genre seems to just be super resilient. But I think the main reason is that it's got just this uncanny ability to morph into different genres and be super flexible with any challenges that normal movie productions get tossed at it. Like, as long as you can be creative in your storytelling, you can really overcome having a dirt budget where you can rely more on like a psychological thriller kind of situation versus like having millions of dollars and making some grand visual spectacle that is, going to torment viewers in its own different way.
I totally agree with especially recent developments in Hollywood. CGI is the main thing people are using. But horror has kind of done the opposite, where they're still really using practical effects, and it gives their movies a more tactile or tangible feel to them, and it almost makes them feel timeless. So then, and so they're using things that are real of this earth, not computer generated. They're using real tangible things in their movies, and they're telling stories that are also compelling, that we care about, and it makes the movies feel timeless.
Yeah, totally. I also think of things like films like Mandy, where it's like you can just go to the extremes of the imagination and still come out with a product that is entertaining to watch. Like it's barely grasping onto the realm of what makes sense, right? But it's so fun to watch, and it's super entertaining, and just like, oh my gosh, shock appeal to it, right? It's I like that it's a genre that really knows no bounds. Like, if you can find a way to pull it off with a camera, like, you can almost certainly work it into a horror movie.
Yeah, a lot of horror movies really are abstract in that way, but it's also really cool because there's a lot of beauty in horror movies, like horrific imagery or like a perfectly blocked shot from a film. It opens up another world of what beauty can be. We've seen beautiful sunsets, we've seen oceans, we've seen it all when it comes to like happy, beautiful things, but also there's what comes to mind is like the priest in front of the street lamp for The Exorcist, or Pennywise
Oh,
holding all the
sure.
red balloons in the It
That's the one that
reboot.
came to mind
It's
for
like
me.
creepy, and
Yeah.
it draws out this like uncomfortable feeling out of you, but it's also objectively a pretty picture to look at.
Yeah, you're totally right. The balance of it. And that kind of hits on what I was getting at before. The way that the horror genre can kind of like morph into other genres. Like, you can find like these really comedic moments. Like, think of like the Scream franchise. Like, there's so many just humorous moments paired with just these giant like jump scares, right? And it's a really successful horror franchise. Just like it can really take on any other genre in the storytelling universe, and find fun ways to like play on the different horror tropes like within those different genres, if that makes sense.
And that kind of brings about another big reason why I think horror has lasted so long and kind of trudges through everything is the community. There's a huge horror fan
Yes.
community. People diving into these movies far after they come out. People have their own like you don't think when you think of like superhero movies, there's not like a really obscure, low budget, cheesy superhero movie that everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that is a great movie." But with horror, there's there's so many out there that it's impossible to name
Yeah,
all
there's
of
so
them.
many delivering.
And the word of
Yeah,
mouth
especially with
too.
streaming platforms.
Streaming platforms
Oh
and
yeah.
word of mouth as far as like social media or like news outlets. When Terrifier 2 came out, that was on a $250,000 budget. It comes out and it just basically shocks the entire world, or I guess the US. I
Yeah,
don't know if it was a worldwide
100%.
release, but people are doing, like, news outlets are reporting on it, people fainting and passing out, and it draws more people in to see the movie. So that $250,000 movie now is worth over $10 million.
Like, let's go, right? That kind of reminds me of like A24 as well, because they take a lot of money away from like their typical marketing and rely solely on like social media to market their movies. And with that money, now they can go and produce movies that might be a little bit more like of a risk for them to take on, but are inspiring or creative or something that they are like actually caring about. And I really like that kind of like vibe from a production company. And not every A24 movie you see hits, but the ones that do, oh, they hit hard, you know?
Yeah, well, what scares people is very personal to them, and then them putting, like, the creators and directors and cinematographers putting it on film is personal. When they're making something to scare a large audience, they're making something that would scare them. So it makes these films feel more personal. No matter the budget, it still feels personal because they have so much of themselves in it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like a horror film's ability to just tap into that primal state of fear is something that resonates so deeply with the human experience, no matter who you are. Like you were saying, it's something so personal to all of us that one thing is for certain: the horror genre isn't going anywhere. You know, this is a staple of storytelling, no matter how we move forward with that going into the future. They seem to just be resilient to any of the typical Hollywood trends. And that's really why I think horror movies can stand on a pillar, slightly above all of the other genres. It's a little bit ballsy to say, maybe.
Well, I mean, I completely agree. Rules don't really apply to horror films. Horror was made to break the rules and push the envelope of what is acceptable. And I think it's going to continue to do that with its ever-growing fan base. Movies like Terrifier, like independent movies starting to make crazy money and become a mainstream hit is kind of evidence that we're going to push the envelope even more and more. And we're really going to see where we can go with horror and what the human subconscious is really like.
Oh, geez. Hey, right on. Well, and as they come out, we will be here to review them. So make sure to check back with us. You can find us everywhere at Couchlock Pod. Please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Until next time, keep it locked.